The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sam McKee. Andrew Adams?
Yeah.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Who's that?
Is there a question?
Who's Andrew Adams?
That's the guy that's running our board. Derek's been off
Double A.
last couple days.
Double A, welcome aboard.
The AA batteries in the building.
Jake the Snake Schultz. Wow.
Yeah.
Still plenty of meat on the bone here on a Friday. Off the Rails is coming up the next 2 hours. Kris Versteeg, two-time Stanley Cup champion, is going to make a rare
I'm
appearance.
excited about that.
Are we okay to have him because he hangs out with J.D. Bunkus?
We had to file some paperwork to make this happen,
But
I think.
No comment.
Clearly, Versteeg wants the big show,
Oh, give
right?
it a rest.
Jeez.
Give
Doesn't
it
he?
a rest.
We'll do
No
our.
comment.
We'll finally get Chris some.
Listen, I've been burying my colleagues enough already, so I don't need to.
It's all right.
I don't need to bury any more colleagues.
Just happy to give him the FaceTime that he deserves. That's all.
All right.
All right.
Enough. Good God.
Just kidding, JD. Just kidding. Doug MacLean will join us on the National Hour, and that's when things really, really step into the ditch.
Yeah.
Plenty to talk about, including a trade. The New York Rangers. Seems like it's been consumed like the last 24, 48 hours on what the Rangers are going to do with some of their big contracts, their big boys. Some of them have no moves.
Yeah.
Jacob Trouba had one, but only half the teams at 15, if I'm not mistaken, and he ends up going to Anaheim. You want to wait for that nationally? Or
I
you
think
want
it's worth the conversation.
Yeah, it's worth the chat for sure.
Original Six team, is about to waive their captain at one point today, and then he ends up getting traded to the Ducks. I think it's worth a quick conversation before we get to Leafs.
All right.
What do you think?
What do I think? I think, unfortunately, it's the ugly side of business or the game.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the players have rights with no moves or limited no trade clauses. You exercise them. Teams also find different ways to get around them. And that's basically what happened. Just for those of that aren't up to speed, the threat was, if you don't let us trade you, we'll put you on waivers. That didn't happen. As we found out at 2 p.m. that he was not on waivers, which meant he finally agreed to a contract. Or a trade, with Anaheim.
The waivers thing is crazy and probably a loophole that will eventually get closed in some form of CBA. But, to sort of put this in perspective, it sounds like his play was at such a level, in the Rangers' opinion, that they would rather have his cap space than have him play for them at all. Right? They just want to free up that space. They're ready to just move on from him, which is why they traded him for nothing, essentially.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Vakanainen, but they just wanted the cap space here. It's a little strange, isn't it? That threat of if you have the Ducks on your no trade or no move clause, but they waive you, the Ducks can claim you. So basically, if you play badly enough, you don't have a no move clause.
So, I think this is a very two-sided story in terms of the public, what you see and what's probably going on behind the scenes with Trouba and that team and the whole thing. But from a public relations standpoint, this is a bit of a nightmare, no? Having your captain be the captain of the Rangers, this original six, one of the premier franchises in the NHL, and you're threatening waiving your captain to get him to trade. You trade him to the Ducks. I don't know. It just kind of all rubs me the wrong way how it played out.
I totally agree. And I also agree with people saying, well, this is just business. It's just the business aspect. And a little bit to Sammy's point, yeah, it is, but it can come across as bad business too.
Yeah.
And it's just not about the Rangers and Trouba and their situation, but it's about 20 other guys in the dressing room that are watching this.
Yeah.
And so if you've watched in the last, 3 days, 4 days, that the threat of trading your captain and then the threat of trading your most senior guy, how's it going to make 20 other guys feel in that room? If they're getting pushed out, what does it do for me? How am I going to feel coming to work every day?
I think if you're the Rangers, isn't that part of what you want to happen here? You want to say that no one is safe? That everyone is playing for their jobs and that everyone's a little too fat and happy and comfortable and that, hey, any of you could be next. You know, it's hard to become the GM of the New York Rangers, one would imagine. You have a job to do. I agree with you that this is not great. You don't want to have to push this button, but if you feel like your team is underperforming enough and he's at the root of it.
The only question is short term or long term, how does this help you? Like, they play tonight, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's coming in, playing a lot better.
4 in a row, I think.
Okay. Is this good for your team to go play tonight, or is it just pouring gasoline on a flame?
Fire. So they have $8.6 million in cap space with Trouba gone. And, Puck PD had tweeted that means that they will accrue cap space up to the deadline, which conceivably they could then spend up to $27 million in accrued cap space at the deadline just for this year, which is a concept I'm not entirely clear on, and I do need to look into that farther. But, it feels like the Rangers are going to have room to acquire players.
When, though? When?
What do you mean by when? Because you know the timeline.
You're going to now go get players. There's no trades. There's nothing happening. Everybody's got a cash crunch. While a lot of teams showed interest in Trouba.
They don't anymore.
But other teams do.
Well, you can take their problems.
But it doesn't happen, JB.
So your point, though, is that because trades happen in March or late February, March. So
are they going to be significant ones? And what kind of team do you have? And are you still in it? Are you not in it? Mm-hmm. You just told me that everybody's on. It's maybe a good thing that the team's on eggshells here. Are they going to still hold on to their playoff spot? Did they not get weaker? Say what you will about
worse.
Trouba.
They're worse today.
Worse today without Trouba on that blue line?
No doubt.
Back in Nainen or whatever his name is like a poor man's Labushkin. So, are you still in a playoff spot by March?
Yeah. I mean, the answer there is yes, because it's just who's going to catch them, in that metro. They're pretty safe. The Flyers would be the closest thing to a team that could.
Okay, but they're not going anywhere, even if they made the playoffs, right?
The Rangers?
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, they plan on spending this cap space. They're not going to go into the playoffs without spending Trouba's money here. That they opened it up. In the future, they're going to need it for Shesterkin, presumably, and Lafreniere's money's going up.
But if you're going to use it, to my earlier point, who are you trading with? Who's coming in? Are you going to go
Brady
get another?
Tkachuk?
Stop it for a second.
Okay. I mean, that name was literally dropped by Larry Brooks.
That's not happening.
Okay.
Who are you going to go get? So you have to go find another bottom-feeding team and take their money, their player that you think is going to help them right away. Mm-hmm. And what? Then you send them back what?
I mean, what are we talking about here? Every deadline, the Leafs added Ryan O'Reilly at center 2 years ago. Good players get traded at the deadline. This is not, why are you acting surprised that good players might get traded? It's that time of year. People make those moves. The Rangers want to be available for a good player.
You're essentially looking at a team it's not just Trouba. That's the reason why the Rangers aren't very good right now.
Yeah.
I don't see one trade saving this thing and putting them right back in play.
Yeah. Do you think they're done?
I cannot see them getting back in. I can tell you that if I was to pick 7 teams like we've talked about in the past to contend for a Stanley Cup, we would have probably put the Rangers in there, but we wouldn't have had them in 3 or 4 or 5. They would have been at the very bottom of 7 teams that could win.
Yeah.
Now they're not even close to 7 teams.
Right. Well, I just don't think that. I think this is a piece of a plan here. I don't think their plan was, let's get rid of Trouba and then be a bit worse.
So let's assume that Kreider's out there in play.
Yeah.
Right? So does he go to another bottom feeder team and then you end up with a 4th-round pick and a 4th-line centerman just to get rid of him? Or you think you're going to get back Brady Tkachuk? What world does anybody ever think that they're going to get Brady Tkachuk?
They're not getting Brady Tkachuk. They're not. I understand that fully.
Mm.
But
And I'm with you.
JT
It's
Miller?
that's an interesting one.
Like I agree with Borny. They're opening up this cap space to do something. And to your point, I don't know if they're good enough, regardless of what they do. Like the way that they've played defensively, everything they've looked like this year. If they didn't have Shesterkin, they'd be down with the Blackhawks and the Ducks. Like they've really been bad. But they're not going to stop trying to get good players. Like I think this is part of and I think tonight will tell you a lot. If they just like lay an egg after they trade their captain and it's ugly at home against a kind of bad team, could get ugly for them. Anyways, Leafs.
Another rare Friday night, right? We had one, I think, for Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Not too many of them.
Yeah.
But they go back to back. Washington and Pittsburgh
back-to-backs this month.
So it gets busy in a hurry here. So what do you got on the Washington Capitals tonight?
I mean, this team, they're the first place team in the Metro Division here, red hot. I don't know. I'm curious to see what this Capitals team looks like.
Second best team by points percentage in the NHL behind the Minnesota
That's
Wild.
shocking.
Like behind the Minnesota Wild, what you all predicted.
And
so
similar
literally
record with the Leafs, I think, with just one game between them in the win-loss column. So this one will be interesting tonight. Let's go to Craig Berube for our first Friday's Kipper Clipper on the Washington Capitals.
Clip four.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're a very good team. They score a lot, a good rush team, and they're a big, heavy team in my opinion. They're going to forecheck hard, and they're good on the rush, and we had our hands full in there in that game. I don't expect anything different. I know Ovechkin played that game, but they're still playing real good hockey without him.
Okay, yeah, I mean he's. Lots to like about the way Carberry's got them going. Do they have Jake McCabe tonight back in the lineup?
They do not.
They do not.
They do not.
That's what we have. Do we have an update?
We do have an update on it.
Okay, let's go to the update and we'll have a conversation on it.
Clip 7 on Jake McCabe.
They ruled out Jake for today, but is he continuing to feel better?
Yeah, I haven't checked today after he skated, so I will. But he's on the ice, so he's going in the right direction right now.
What was the thought process on keeping him out tonight? Because he skated yesterday, skated today. Like, what was the conversation like?
With McCabe?
Yeah, like why?
Just because he's not ready to play. That's why. That's really it. He's not ready to play.
It's concerning.
All right. Well, I don't know. You waited 3.5 weeks for Matthews on a day-to-day for 3 weeks. Like, this is the way it is now with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, like I get the. So you think it's just them being like overcautious on something that maybe not a big deal?
Or the player is being overly protective of his services and being 100%.
Yeah. I mean, you get a puck to this region of your humanity and then have headaches to the point where you feel like you can't play. You know, those sort of things do concern me. That doesn't feel like the type of thing that's like, you just shake it off, no big deal. It's a big deal.
I think I've been heaping praise on the Berube era of Toronto Maple Leafs hockey.
Yeah.
The one part of this era of Leafs hockey I will not be heaping praise on is the lying to the fans and media.
Okay. No one is lying.
Yes, they lied about Austin Matthews for 3 weeks. They're like, oh, yeah, he's fine.
They didn't know he was going to be out for 3 weeks.
I think they didn't.
You think 3 weeks ago they said, okay, he's out 3 weeks, but let's tell Sammy it's day to day.
I do believe that, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Like, I think, were they more clear last year? Maybe it's just something I didn't think of. But when you hear day to day, he's fine. Every guy is fine. Every guy that has been hurt, according to Berube, the next time, yeah, they're fine. They're fine. He's fine. No problems. It's like, why? Like, every guy has been hurt in the lineup, then missed half, think of all the guys they've missed.
I do wonder if they had some pre-year meeting where they were like, all right, everyone who we think is ready to come back from injury, we're going to give one more game. Yeah. Just give them the one extra game just to make sure
feels that way.
Yeah.
But
they're fine. Everyone's fine. He's got hit in the ear with a puck. He's fine.
In the lineup, they keep winning anyways, so don't worry about it.
It doesn't even matter who they play.
Yeah.
Right?
I think of all the guys that have gone out outside of Austin Matthews, the most, McCabe is a concerning one. He is a key cog to the defense core, and you want him feeling right. You want you know how long concussions can linger and how they affect play.
Well,
or
nobody's
whatever.
used that word
Well, no,
yet.
but I mean, he got hit in the temple with a puck, and he's been okay one day, not the other. I mean,
Yeah.
What
I
else
don't
could
need
it be?
I don't need to be our Dr. Jason Smith to tell you he's probably got a little bit of a concussion, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just got to go back to my dad's era and just call it like, he's got his bell rung.
Get him back out there.
Cobwebs.
He's coughing.
Shake the cobwebs off.
Send him back out, no problem. But no, it's been a little weird the way they've handled it. I don't have a lot of nitpicks, but that is one of the things that's kind of driven me crazy about the Leafs so far this year.
All right. Sounds like he's going to be leaving Marner and Matthews together. Why don't we listen to clip 1 and see what he has to say?
Clip 1.
The way they ended up last game, I think we start that way tonight. You change things up in games sometimes and it works, so you stick with it for a bit and see how it goes.
Okay.
I'm just interested to see how long this is. This is just the rest of the year now.
Well,
We
they
talked about it yesterday.
catch
I
on
know, but-
fire.
Yeah.
It'll go as long as they feel like it's a good thing for their hockey club. The bigger question to me is, I think the analytics suggest that Tavares and Nylander are much less successful, right? That sometimes it's a wash with them, where it's like one goal for, one goal against.
I think they were worse than that last year. Maybe just a goal or two below 50%.
Yeah.
When they were on the ice, which is baffling, right? Like, given their talent and the money they make and all that.
Yeah, I don't need analytics to tell you that those two aren't never been great together.
Yeah.
It's just that is why it's a flawed thing to go back to to Matthews and
maybe
Marner.
it's not if you just went to Nylander on a third line or on his
Sure.
own line or something.
But
different.
like if the product of putting
Austin
Marner
wants to
in,
get going, and he calls. He needs. I told you how I feel. Like, you go and get your best player. It's like if
Absolutely.
McDavid's struggling, he's like, give me Leon back. It's just the way it works with
when does McDavid struggle?
1-2 punch.
4 points.
Yeah, I know. It was unbelievable. But no, you're right. But the thing is, the byproduct of putting Marner and Matthews together usually means Tavares and Willie together, which isn't the best, I don't think, output of their skills and their lines. And I think it's a necessary evil to have those two together, but it is what it is.
Robertson, Minton, Lorentz, Grebenkin, Dewar, Reeves is your bottom 6 tonight.
Yeah.
And looks like, I assume Myers is still in. Yeah, still playing with Morgan Riley, OEL, Tanev, Benoit, Timmins tonight.
You want to talk about Connor Dewar? You want?
I want to talk about the
Minton?
backs. How about that? Your thought on all this hockey. Is this good for the Leafs? How to handle it? A lot of
Yeah, I think they got kind of screwed over.
schedule wise.
Yeah, Amazon.
Is that related to that?
Sure.
Just so they can be on a bunch of Mondays, sort of thing.
They wanted them on Mondays.
Yeah.
Okay. Not only that, Amazon pushed that when we don't have the Leafs, we don't compete against them, right?
So they're either okay.
Like they just had their way.
Oh, so what do you mean? So like the Leafs can't play on they pushed.
They can't play
Leafs?
on another Monday that they're on.
Wow, that's interesting. You think that actually happened?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
I do.
Yeah, it's good business.
So I think there is one Monday that they're on the same day. So they get a Canadian matchup, Amazon.
10 p.m.
But the Leafs are like early, and then the game's later for Amazon.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with Four Nations face off, that little loophole, certainly there's a lot of, I know, we have them on a lot of Wednesdays. So certainly they've got some scheduling complications. They have 3 back-to-backs this month, as I mentioned. Why don't we listen to Craig Berube, clip 3 on the back-to-backs.
So far, it's been fine. We do have a lot, and we've made some adjustments where we put different guys in the next night and have a little more legs that are fresh. So those are kind of decisions that we got to keep looking at and going forward, is using the bodies if we have them, and get some fresh legs in there. But I think overall, our mindset is, playing smart. I mean, back-to-back games, depending on the travel and all that stuff. And that makes a difference too. But it's just managing the game more than anything for me. That's the most important thing when you're playing back-to-backs.
They've been good on back-to-backs this year.
Wow, listen, you just heard him, what he said. Like, so far, we're okay, so I'm not complaining, but I'll complain. Stand by.
Yeah.
If this thing goes south for us on back-to-backs, you're going to hear from me.
I do like the idea that they're talking about putting in fresh legs. Like, Alex Nylander probably plays Saturday night if he doesn't play tonight. I bet you if McCabe probably comes back. If he doesn't, I bet Rafai gets in. Like, I like the idea of down the lineup, say, all right, let's put in somebody who didn't play back-to-back.
Keeps everybody on their toes.
Yeah, get the energy, get everyone involved.
And it pushes each player to be good when called upon because you don't know when you're going to get your next chance.
Yeah, they've got
I went
depth.
through with the Rangers. You're
waiting. You're like,
waiting and chomping.
Yeah.
And when you're in, you're like, I got to play so well that they can't take me out.
Yeah.
It's a big difference than going to work every day and feeling like I got my spot waiting for me.
Particularly down like in the bottom six forwards.
I think they're 3-1 in the second game of back-to-backs already this year. Like, they've played well. The only really bad one was the night. Remember when we all talked about that Tampa game for 3 weeks, and then the second night was the one in Columbus where they went down there and got absolutely smoked, 6-2 or 6-1. Yeah, it wasn't good. But it's like you look at the schedule for December, it just doesn't stop. So it's interesting to see how they handle it.
I'm interested to hear Craig Berube on Morgan Rielly. Why did you pick this clip?
He got asked about him, and he gave a sort of, a synopsis of what he's been like this year for them. So I just thought it'd be a good point to talk about Rielly. So
I think he's played really well for us. I think, he's taken some of he's used to really getting up in the play, and he still does. And I think he's picking his spots really well with that and defending well. He's done a good job for us, in my opinion.
Interested that he mentioned about him getting up in the play. Do you think he asked him when he took over to not do it as much?
Probably. Yeah. I imagine so. Like, because they started him with Tanev, so maybe they were thinking, I don't know, maybe play more of a defensive role. But to me, like, when he said that about his decision making, that when Morgan Rielly is at his best, the decision making could be his best sort of attribute in terms of when to jump up, when not to go, using his feet like he's really good at. But like, how would you assess his season this year?
It's not like I would say give him the Jimmy Vesey treatment and say vanilla, because it's just expectations are high for him, right? So for me, it's not that he's been bad, and I've said this about other good players in the past when they've struggled, but it's the absence of great that makes it noteworthy. He makes a lot of money to be there, number one D, and hasn't made a ton of mistakes. He's been fine, totally fine. But just we haven't seen that top end where he's great for them and a difference maker.
And it was more noticeable when he was in years past because everybody was so much worse than him.
You think that's what it was? He just stood out as the best of.
And now there's so much depth, and he doesn't have to over push or gamble.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of pushed him down in terms of standing out so much.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's one of. He's not the guy.
Yeah. He's one of guys.
So he's one of.
Yeah.
Who's the most valuable defenseman in the first 20 games?
Chris Tanev.
When was the last time you ever picked another defenseman more valuable than Morgan Rielly the last 10 years?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's not really happened, has it?
Muzzin
had a little run there.
Yeah, no,
maybe.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. He had to have been your number one guy, or else the team was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference now.
Sorry, he's just down almost 2 minutes per game this year from last year.
Yeah.
He's down for 2 minutes.
And I don't hate that.
Neither do I.
He's going to end up with 50 points, right? 45, 50 points, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be 70 right now. Doesn't need to be the guy with all the weight on his shoulders.
Yeah.
So Leafs, very good quarter of a season, right?
Yes.
And Morgan can't make enough noise to get on Team Canada. Like, if I would have told you the Leafs would have been at the top of the Atlantic after the quarter mark, and I told you that Morgan Riley was not going to be one of 6, 7 Canadians on Team Canada, would you said, I don't know.
So
He'd almost have to be, wouldn't he?
I feel like your point is less about Morgan Riley and how he's played this year and more about in the past you feel like he was overvalued, overused, overrated even.
Over-needed.
Yeah.
And he felt it.
Over-leaned on.
Over-leaned on. Is he a Norris kind of guy? Well, he's a good defenseman. But he might one day have a career year where he could maybe get some votes for the Norris, but he's not Norris material. And now he's amongst a group with some good depth, and we'll see how good as the season progresses, but he's not needed and counted on every game to do what he thought he needed to do in years past.
So how has that affected the way he's played, in your opinion? Has he played the same level he's been at in the past, and it's just less noticeable?
It's less noticeable.
But he's been basically the same player for you?
No, he's not as flashy. He doesn't stand out as much.
Yeah.
And they're winning. This will go a lot farther for the Toronto Maple Leafs, this Morgan Riley, than the one that we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about what's best for the team, then this is the Morgan Riley I want. If we want to talk about how does Morgan look like he's worth $7.5 million every night, now you're kind of pushing the envelope on what he's capable of doing or not capable of doing.
He was so good against Tampa in the series they won.
Oh, yeah.
Like that, he was their MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a tremendous run for him. So, I do hope that he has more flashes of
I
that
think he's
and not
got,
just
he's,
this.
he's got potential to get to that spot again. Maybe we'll see how matchups go too, because Berube now knows that one of the best shutdown pairs in the league is Tanev and McKee.
Well, that should open Morgan for more of the top end stuff, right?
We'll see. Yeah.
Now I
We'll
wonder, in the past we've talked about the Leafs adding a D-man.
Yeah.
Interesting to see who Morgan plays with in playoffs.
His D partner is playing for Nashville.
You think so? Oh, that's your Shen is still coming.
If you look behind you, that jersey that has a 2 on it.
I don't mind.
Oh, it's a Shen jersey behind me, isn't it?
I think Morgan is doing everything he's supposed to right now, and that's help his team win. And it may come at a cost of not standing out as much as maybe he'd like to, being flashing enough to make a Team Canada, but at this point of his career, he doesn't care about Team Canada compared to what's at stake for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
This guy to me is like, he's the perfect Leaf. I mean, do you ever hear him complain? They're going to 5 forwards, or they go to OEL, or they go to Rasmus Sandin, or whoever it is on the power play. Never once do you see him gripe or pout or drag his lip or bad body language. Like, he just plays. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I never really thought he was a Team Canada candidate.
Nah, it was ambitious thought.
Canada's got a lot of good defensemen, boys. A lot of good defensemen in
It's
Canada.
a tough nut to crack.
It is.
Yeah.
That blue line.
Anyways, we should go for Versteeg.
Yeah.
Okay. When we come back, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Not just 1, 2. Kris Versteeg will join us. More Real Kyper and Bourne after the break. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee, Andrew Adams, who's doing a hell of a job on a crazy Friday. And Jake, you as well, buddy. You as well. Okay, let's welcome him in. As I said before, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. And I'm just so grateful to JD Bunkus for allowing us to have you on our show. So let's just start there. You work with him fairly regularly. How do you do it?
Honestly, I was waiting for this question, and he still doesn't know I'm coming on this show yet. So once he sees this, I'm going to get a very angry text message, but nothing new with a petty guy like JD.
Well, tremendous insight on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and now you get to share it on our show, so we're thankful for that. In terms of what you saw, what you expected at the beginning of the season, training camp, new coach, new attitude. Here we are past the quarter mark. What's your overall assessment, Kris?
Yeah, it was interesting because when you look at last year's team and what I saw, I thought at the start of the year was pretty similar about just stacking two lines. Obviously, they changed stylistically to what they did previously, but they didn't really change much until the injuries took place, and they were kind of forced into a situation to see what their depth has, to see how their top players that are in the lineup play with depth. So I don't think I really saw the true Toronto Maple Leafs until all those injuries happened, when you could see what their depth could do and how their top guys could play. And then what I thought what happened then is those young guys came into the lineup and almost showed the older guys, this is how Craig Berube wants to play. So I am now interested to see, when the older guys get back in the lineup, are they willing to buy in to the real Craig Berube style of hockey, which the young guys have kind of laid the groundwork.
Steger, thanks for joining us. And I do want to ask you about the Clever app a little bit before we let you go today. But before I do that, you saw the evolution of the Chicago Blackhawks, and they're great players and what they had to do with their skill set to become champions, and you being a part of that as well. Are there lessons that the Toronto Maple Leafs great players can learn from the evolution you saw the top guys on the Blackhawks go through?
The biggest thing the top guys on the Chicago Blackhawks had to understand is you're not going to get 100 points on a Stanley Cup winning team. You're not going to always get 120 points from your top guys. Those are just things that Patrick Kane, you look at when we won the Stanley Cup, 88 points one year, 82 points the next year. These guys were willing to sacrifice points, understanding that other guys had to get involved into the game. So the biggest thing, I look back on my time, and then when I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs and I look at other top teams, the top teams, top guys sacrifice. They sacrifice their point totals. So when I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's why it's not important to see guys get 70 goals. I mean, it's important for the game and building the game, but to me, it's not important to winning a championship. William Nylander, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews may have to play on a third line, may have to get other guys going. I know it sounds crazy. That's what I would do. You have to be willing to sacrifice your point totals. You have to be willing to sacrifice maybe individual awards in order to win a Stanley Cup. And those top guys in the Chicago Blackhawks, every single guy I played with, were guys that sacrificed, whether it was on the ice or off the ice or ego-wise, every single day.
We're talking to Kris Versteeg, two-time Stanley Cup champion and creator of Clever app, which we're going to get into it.
It's very good.
We're going to get into it before we let you go. But I just want to stay with the comparison of your Stanley Cup champion team in Chicago and Taves and Kane. And can the Leafs turn Matthews and Marner into that? And where is Nylander in all of this? But is that where it needs to head for you?
Yeah, so I agree. I think it needs. So actually, if you look at the first Stanley Cup in 2010, Taves and Kane predominantly played together, but they were young guys. Once the salary cap got too high and guys had to leave, you had to split Taves and Kane up to carry their own lines. That was a big piece of their evolution, is having to split those two guys up. They'd still get their power play looks and power play time together. And then if you're looking at the Nylanders and all these other guys, you have Patrick Sharp who could carry a line. You have, in the 1 year, Dustin Byfuglien could carry a line. You had guys like David Boland and certain guys underneath. But the thing with our Stanley Cup teams in Chicago is you would look at the ice time some nights and Taves would have 18 minutes, Kane would have 18 minutes, and Dave Boland would have 19 or 20. It just really depended on the matchups Q wanted to see and the coaching staff wanted to see. And those guys were bought in and understood that some nights you weren't a guy going. You weren't maybe on the power play, or maybe he wasn't going to start you on the power play, or he wasn't going to line match you at certain moments. So when I look at the evolution of the Leafs, the biggest, and I feel the last piece, especially in a terrible Atlantic division, I hate to say it, there's not many good teams. Florida, I think, is ripe to be picking. But I think the last piece to this team is the buy-in and the willingness to give up in order to get. And if I look at the Leafs team, I think that's it. Their top guys are unbelievable players, but they're going to have to sacrifice either minutes, what line they play with, point totals. Because again, I look at the East even, it's ripe for the picking by these guys. They're a great team, but those top guys are going to have to buy in order to make it work.
Do you think you have to play a certain way to have success in the playoffs? Like, everyone always talks about defense wins championships. Does it have to be that way, or are there different ways to go about it? I'm sure you saw different style teams have success along the way, but they usually had good defending in common.
Yeah, good defending is a big thing, but you just got to be able to beat teams every single way. You got to be able to grind them down low. You got to get pucks out of the zone fast. You have to kill penalties. PP to me at times is an interesting stat in the playoffs. You've seen teams in the past not have a great PP, but your 5-on-5 play of how quick you got to get the puck up the ice, how much you got to grind in the zone, and then also turn shifts over. Sometimes I watch the Leafs or I watch certain teams that maybe haven't made that hurdle. They get into the zone. They extend their shift for a minute and 10 seconds. They're not getting off the ice. That's part of the sacrifice piece that I was talking to you about. But those type of shifts in a Stanley Cup playoff series, in long ones, getting turnover on your line changes, and understanding sometimes in a matchup when a coach does want you on the ice and doesn't, you have to get off the ice in case. So, but that's a buy-in from the team and the guys in that situation.
Kris, I got to ask you about the Marner situation, because we know everybody's got one, right? An opinion on this. And it's either get him signed now, no wait for the playoffs, get him signed now at X amount and no more, give him whatever he wants. Like, where do you see this from your view, and how it plays out, or how you would play it out?
Yeah, so from the start of it, you're either in the camp of he's got to go or he's got to stay. I've always liked Mitch being a part of this team. I think he is an important part of this team, depending on the salary cap that he's coming in at. I've always said if he's the $13-14 million guy, I think it's hard to make him that guy on this team. If he's willing to sacrifice some dollars, maybe sacrifice ice time where he is in the lineup at times, depending on a playoff series and stuff like that, he's an integral part to this team. Now, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't think I would end up, whether I'm in Mitch's camp or in the Leafs camp right now, I don't think you do the deal. I mean, you look at history of Nylander, you look at the history of some guys doing deals and then maybe they cool off and also getting a little hot and heavy in regular season. We need to see, I think, what Mitch can do in the playoffs. I think he can do it. I think the way he needs to play at times needs to change a little bit in the playoffs. That's not to say he can't do it. But if I was the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'd definitely hold off a little bit longer, see how this turns out over the year. And also for Mitch, it's a good thing if he holds out and he goes off for 100 points this year, he's going to get paid as well. It might not be as good for the Leafs, but I think you need to see how this whole situation works out. I mean, this has been 8 years now of asking for playoff success from guys. You need to see if this actually is the year that they turn it up and get the job done before I think anything gets done.
Did you want to follow on that?
No, I'm good.
Jacob Trouba got traded today. Not sure if you saw that. Kind of a big deal in the NHL. Yeah. What are your thoughts on guys getting dealt who have no move clauses and organizations going to guys who have these deals and saying, we just don't want you anymore?
First off, Barney, you look exactly like my brother. This is so strange.
You've actually said that before.
Where you're in with my brother. It's crazy. So I just think the Rangers are a disaster, straight up. Yeah. Like you send out, you basically leak it that you're going to get rid of Kreider, and then you're going to get rid of Trouba, and then all of a sudden it's like, let's see if it gives them a shot in the arm. But now they got to back it up. They had to back it up because it obviously didn't give the team a shot in the arm. So Drury can't look weak in this situation. That's how I kind of see it. So he's like, well, I got to get rid of one or the other. Why would I get rid of Kreider? He's one of my most valuable forwards that does everything and comes to play in the playoffs. So I just think overall the Rangers are a disaster right now. And I think how they go about their business, I think structurally they're a disaster. But when it comes to a player specifically, and I mean, I've had a no move. So when I was moved to the Hawks, and they were obviously on my no move list. And I'm a pigeon compared to these guys. So my no move list wasn't as big. But when you're looking at guys, I would assume going into a situation of like Jake Trouba, how much he's given to the organization, the captain, and they're asking you to now go to, it's Anaheim, correct? I just saw it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You're asking him to go to Anaheim. I mean, that's probably got to be a hard conversation for Jake. And then I'm sure he's just sitting there like, how much more crap can I take? Right? Like, I'm the captain of this team. You're leaking stuff about me. So I think there's some unprofessionalism there, especially from the New York Rangers side for Jake. But as a player, those things are tough, man. I mean, you're put in a situation where you're doing whatever it takes for a team. They obviously don't want you in that situation anymore. They think you're a problem within that team. And hey, we all have egos. We have big egos. And that's why these players are where they are, is because of that. So when someone chips away at that, that hurts a lot. So I don't envy for what Jake's going through. I also don't like how the New York Rangers have handled it. And I think overall, like I said, across the board, they're just a disaster.
The other thing, too, is we spoke of this earlier, Steger, and maybe you can speak to this as well, that, once you get past Jacob's out of the room and you move on, for me, it's always about what does it tell the rest of the team? So if, to your point, you've got some names out there. The most recent one is Kreider. He's the most senior guy. Your captain just got, booted out to the curb here. How does that leave 20 other guys in their mindset as they go and play the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight?
Well, they're clearly looking at all options besides firing a coach in order to make their team turn around. That's what it tells me. And as a team, obviously, if you're not ready to go, you might be the next guy out the door. But
can you play under those circumstances? Is that a good thing, or is that everybody on eggshells?
Well, again, if they don't fix structurally or stylistically what they're going to do, it doesn't matter who they bring into their team. They don't play hockey the right way in order to win a Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't think they have the right guys in right situations in order to go win a bunch of rounds in the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you're playing this 1-3-1, which Lavi does at times, or if you're playing these man-on-man defense, if you don't have the guys willing to defend in isolated situations all over the ice, and you don't have these great big D-men who can isolate guys on the ice, it doesn't matter who you bring in. So for these players, I think they're just up against it because first off, the man or the GM calls them out and the president, or they leak it. And now these guys are in the room trying to reel and figure out, how am I going to go play a hockey game tonight? Yes, you can play in that because you're a professional. Are you probably going to get the best always out of guys? I doubt it. But unless stylistically they change, nothing's going to change. I think they're a good enough team to medal through the regular season and get in the playoffs. But to win a Stanley Cup, I think there's a few things that got to change there.
So you're talking Laviolette here. Have you ever seen a coach change a system within a year? It'd be like, this isn't working with our personnel. We're going to try something different.
Now, I played for Peter Laviolette. He's a great coach.
Okay.
He's a great motivator. But if I'm looking at the New York Rangers, I'm looking clearly at Peter and how they're being coached at the moment, stylistically. You're putting your team, who already has a lot of offensive guys, not much, I would say, attention to detail on the defensive end, and you're putting them into isolated situations all over the ice to defend. You're not setting your team up for success. So I think if I'm looking at the blame right now, partially in due with maybe how it's handled at the top, I'm looking at how structurally Peter Laviolette's deploying the team. And it doesn't matter if you bring another young guy up from the minors or whatever. If you're putting skill guys like Panarin one-on-one up top against Makar one night, or you're putting these guys who aren't great defenders into isolated situations all over the ice, I'm looking directly at the coach before I'm looking at any of the players. That's why certain D zones work better, right? That's why maybe a bit of a zone with just where guys can be in more quadrants, because you're trying to protect the guys who are generally not great defenders, if that makes sense.
It does. I do want to ask just a little bit. So my son is 8 years old, playing house hockey in Toronto. My wife couldn't be there in the weekend and missed a big goal of his. Tell us about the Clever app, will you?
Yeah, so Clever was just, it's a technology for phones and tablets where we were trying to streamline video coaching. So I had a lot of guys, whether they're in the NHL or youth hockey players, trying to get me to look at clips. And it was just about getting a clip, coaching it, drawing on it, and sharing it in an instant. So yeah, Clever is streamlined video coaching technology. We got, 8, 9 different sports on the platform now. And it's a new venture, and it's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Steger, awesome stuff, man. Thanks for joining us, and a big hello from the three of us to JD Bunkus for us. Okay,
he's not texting me.
Tell him sharing is good.
Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. That is two-time Stanley Cup champion, Kris Versteeg.
Great stuff there. Really good stuff. Some potential breaking news here from Kevin Weeks.
Shesterkin.
He's saying that somewhere, 8-year extension, somewhere between 11.5 and 12.
Trying to soften the blow
What a
for,
day
for
in the
Ranger fans.
Big
Be like,
Apple.
we had to do it. We had to make room for Shesty.
Let's quickly discuss that, but I got to read for you first. Who wants to win a bunch of cash while doing the best thing this holiday season, boys?
Hey.
It's Sportsnet 590 The Fans 50-50 fortune supporting food for kids. Here's what you need to know. We've created a 50-50 lottery where the more money we raise, the more kids we can feed in the GTA, and the more you can win. The current take-home prize is over $522,000, boys. Someone is going to win that jackpot on Thursday, December 19th. And if you get your tickets early, there's still one more amazing early bird prize. This time, it's 2 tickets to see Coldplay on July 8th at Rogers Stadium. Get your tickets by Friday, December 13th at 9 a.m. for the chance to win those Coldplay tickets. For more details and to buy your tickets, go to foodforkids5050.ca or text the word cash to 590-590 and we'll send the link right to your phone. It's the 50-50 fortune supporting food for kids, standard message, and data rates apply, Ontario only.
Alrighty.
Coldplay.
Yeah.
They had a moment.
So
they're like the world's biggest
Are they?
fan for a minute.
Are they now?
I'm not. Anyway.
Win those tickets.
So they needed to move Trouba's money out before this contract doesn't kick in until next season. So
Yeah.
Kinda
Next
like-
season, what do you think the cap
is
next year?
this? Hey everybody, we got some good news.
Yeah.
Don't look over here. Look at this shiny new thing
Yeah.
here.
I mean, it's hard to think it's anything other than that.
It's
Like,
insane timing.
I mean, you'd have to be. They think we're pretty dumb if they think that it's not
Or
a
they're
distraction.
just doing good PR.
So- What does Panarin make? He's the highest. Is he 11.6?
Let me find that for you.
So the big thing was that I needed to be higher than him. So Kevin Weeks has it between 11.5 and 12. But
Panarin
that's a big piece of information.
11.6.
6?
11.6.
11.6.
Yeah,
So what's the over under on
it's 11.7. Probably
11?
11.75.
11.8.
I hate that. Like, I just hate it from a teammate perspective where
I
you're
love
just
it.
like,
I love it.
why?
Of course,
Because-
you love it.
It's
Because
just such an ego me thing where it's like, I just need to be more. Just more than that guy.
But it's proper. It's the way it should work. That my turn comes up. If I'm more valuable, if the cap's going up, then we keep it going. We don't go back. We
Totally.
don't do favors. We don't do discounts. We act the way the system is supposed to work.
Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, guys like Sidney Crosby who are trying to win, and Marchand and the Bruins
Sid
all those
didn't do
years.
Yeah, he's holding it back, but that's okay because he's Sid and he can do it.
And then Connor did it too when he signed.
Yeah,
Like he
less
took.
than
He,
It's
Yeah.
just
And then you watch the dummies who you saved money for make horrible mistakes.
for sure,
And
and,
it's
I get it.
That's my money.
I get
You
it.
that
just
is the best
pissed
point you made, right?
away.
Yeah.
I just gave you money to make the team better. You made it worse.
Yeah.
So I might as well take the money.
Yeah, it just feels petty to me where it's like, yeah, that's great. That's great. He can get his 11.7 and he does deserve it. It makes sense, but it's
So in the future, Connor McDavid would say, okay, if I'm going to leave $500,000, then I'm going to tell you how to spend my $500,000. So like,
Leon didn't leave $500,000.
nah, I don't know.
oh yeah,
No.
Leon left free agent money,
Yeah.
$500,000, my friend.
Yeah, maybe. 14's pretty good.
All right. Now we take it off the rails. Doug MacLean in the next hour, plus text messages.
Yes.
We'll read them, Sammy.
Correct. Get 'em
Tons
in.
more when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. So much for going quietly into the weekend on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. We are national, live on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver, Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. This hour, Real Kyper and Bourne, brought to you by Bet365. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. In a few minutes, we'll welcome in Doug MacLean, former NHL president, GM, head coach. I think he's got a lot to say.
There's a
lot.
lot of topics to say things about today.
Well, the big one, of course, was and is captain of the New York Rangers, ex-captain of the New York Rangers, now a member of Anaheim Ducks, Jacob Trouba, out. And Doug MacLean, as social media has reminded us of this, was instrumental in a trade that almost played out similarly involving the waiver wire. Do you remember that story? He had a player.
I do vaguely. Yeah. Is it
Him and Berkey had a trade.
right?
And the threat was with a no trade or a clause that if you don't waive it, I'm gonna use the waiver wire and I'm gonna put you through waivers.
Right. I can't remember.
Todd Marchand. Is that right?
Well, we're gonna have him on. We
Yes.
Cam.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, we're gonna have him on soon. He'll explain. He'll explain all of it. Also, news: Kevin Weeks from ESPN is reporting that Shesterkin has agreed to an 8-year deal. If I'm not mistaken, Sammy, is that it?
8-year deal between 11, 5, and 12 million, which, as you mentioned at the end of
Panarin's at 11.6.
Yep.
We have to assume that this one minimum would be 11.75. Never 11.7. It's 11.75.
Get to the quarter away from the 12 mark.
But
Feels like they really
surprising,
grinded him.
not surprising. Shesterkin, we know the loyalty in his heart is in New York, but it can't be that great for him to sign a contract under these circumstances of watching maybe the start of your team. I won't use the word dismantling, but some major changes.
Yeah, and I think, people can go back and listen to our opening talk on Trouba if they want from the Leafs Hour, but I think you and I kind of fundamentally disagree on what's happening with the Rangers, where it feels like to me this is step one, and that they're not rebuilding, tearing it down, blowing it up. This to me feels like their goal is to take a step back to take 2 forward this year.
Yeah, and I look at the lineup and I say, it's a lineup that could make the playoffs and should make the playoffs, unless you have someone underneath that can make the playoffs.
Going to be tough for
It's going to be tough.
Philly or
right?
Pitt or
But
the Islanders.
I think we've seen enough that to suggest that. I know Trouba hits like a truck, but up front, this team is too soft for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. You feel like you lack that bite, because Kreider to me is a guy, I know he's not tough, but he's big and he drives the net and punches holes in defenses. Doesn't seem like getting rid of Kreider and Trouba makes you tougher necessarily, unless they're after a certain guy that you know about or something. But I'm not sure how they get tougher by moving these guys on.
Brady Tkachuk.
Okay, let's elephant in the room. Brady Tkachuk.
We got
That's twice in our show that you've dropped Brady Tkachuk.
Well, I'm not reporting it. Brooksy is the one who put the name
Larry
out there.
Brooks, New York Post. Of course, he knows the Rangers quite well.
Mendez wasn't a fan of that one. He put it.
Is saying that Brady Tkachuk could be in play. Okay. Don't ask me. Don't ask JB. Let's ask Doug MacLean, who joins us now from beautiful Florida. What's it called again?
It's a nice quarters at Del Boca Vista.
Yeah, De Boca Vista. Mac, how are you?
I'm great.
Okay.
I'm great.
I
I just come up from a swim, so I had to put this sweater on. I got a bit of a chill.
It's a nice one. I like it.
Thanks for letting us know that. Jacob Trouba will not feel chilled going to California. Sunny there, good weather. Where do you want to start in terms of a Ranger team we had maybe not as front runners to start this season, but a team that should be in the mix with 8 or 9 maybe to maybe win a Stanley Cup. So what's going on down there, and what do you make of the trade?
Well, first of all, I watched them the other night. It was embarrassing. I know you had Steve Alliquette on, and he talked about it eloquently. What's he using my line for now all the time? I'm not telling you it's the truth. I just told you what I heard.
It's a useful line, Doug.
That's
It's
my
useful.
mother's line.
Hey,
That's my mother's line. What the hell is he doing using it?
you sound like George Costanza's dad going, that's my move. Why is he using my move?
Stop short.
So anyway, I watched them the other night, and look, I'm not criticizing Laviolette. He's had a great coaching career, but he runs out of steam really fast as a coach. He runs, and he's run out of steam with this group. And I like, I'm not the big, obviously, look, Gerard Gallant got fired there, takes him to a conference final, gets fired. That's fine. We're friends, but that doesn't matter to me. I have to chuckle at Drury right now because he's got a mess on his hands, and he's affected the dressing room with a lot of talk and a lot of conversation. You got an owner there that's a volatile type of guy. You've got a GM and a owner that are going at it a little bit, and that carries down to the GM going at it with the coach. So they've got their hands full there. They've got a bit of a mess on their hands, and the team is awful. I mean, they're awful the way they're playing right now, and I don't get it because, like you guys said, they were considered. Were they considered a Stanley Cup contender? Not for me, but if Shesterkin gets on a run, yeah, they could be. And I don't get how bad they can be. I'm confused by that. And to get Trouba out of there, who is a physical guy, I know he makes too much money. I get all that. But is that going to be a difference maker? Is that going to help them?
So, Doug, do you think
and just one final thing?
Yeah, have it. Go.
This is a dream that Tkachuk's coming from Ottawa. Like, would Ottawa if that happens, they should put the team for sale. If they sell Tkachuk,
agree.
They should put the team for sale, and Nick's guy should buy it if they trade Tkachuk.
You just want me to hire you. That's what.
So, yeah, which one do you want to talk about? You want to stay on Trouba, or do you want to do this weird Ottawa thing?
I want to talk Trouba. Or I want to talk the threat of waivers.
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask you about. What the hell's going on here, Doug? Like, is this just
to kind of give everybody a background on this? The story that I had was that he went from a complete no move to a limited trade. He had a number of they had an option. I think Columbus, as Elliot said earlier, was right in the thick of things. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to go there. He said, no, I won't accept a trade to Columbus. Put me on waivers. So that was as of last night. We heard he wasn't on waivers today because he agreed to Anaheim. So that's the threat, that without a no move, the threat was to put him on waivers. And someone told me that you did the same thing. Oh, no, it was you. It was you that told me.
Here's what happened in my situation. We were coming out of a lockout, and Todd Marchant made a comment in the newspaper that the owners are putting shackles on, want to put us in shackles. That was his quote. The owners want to put us in shackles.
Sounds
in
truthful.
Other words, yeah. I didn't say it wasn't the truth. So listen. So I get a call from my owner, Mr. McConnell, and he said, "Who's a mouthpiece that says we're putting them in shackles?" And I said, "Well, as you know, it was Todd Marchant's quote in the Columbus paper today. He said, "I want him out of here now. Get him out of town." So of course, Todd has a no trade clause with a number of teams. Okay. So anyway, I called Todd in, and I make the deal with Berkey that we're trading. I was interested in Fedorov because I needed somebody to try to smarten up my Russian problem, Zherdev. And I thought, maybe the greatest player in the history of Russia would come in and maybe help straighten out Zherdev. So, I'm trying to even up the money. So Todd was at 3.5. Sergei was at 5 something. I put Tyler Wright in the deal. We weren't playing at $1 million and moved him out. And we added Beauchemin, which was a bad deal. But anyway, we tried to make it work. So all of a sudden I called Todd in. I say, "I'm going to trade you to Anaheim." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm not going." I said, "You're what?" He said, I'm not going. I don't have to go. I got a no trade. I said, "Oh, you really? You do?" He said, yeah. I said, "Okay, that's good. I'm going to put you on waivers, and maybe they'll pick you up, but you're going. I guarantee you're going." So anyway, we make the deal. We make the deal. I tell Berkey I'm putting him on waivers, and you can pick him up if you want, and go from there. Anyway,
So
he was Todd was very upset. So eventually I put him on waivers, and Berkey picked him up. And of course, there's a big NHL investigation. The PA lose their marbles. The NHL's upset. Was this so? Bill Dale, I said, investigate it. Check it out, man. Check it out. I had a bunch of people phoning me interested in Marchand when I was putting him on waivers. I don't know where he's going, but I knew he was going to Berkey. I mean, I sort of knew that. So anyway, I put him on waivers. We make the deal. I'm sitting in the stands watching the morning skate, and Chris McFarland comes up to me and he said, Berkey didn't take him. I said, what? He what? He said, no, Berkey didn't take him. So I go up and I phone Berkey and I said, excuse me, what's going on? Well, I'm worried about an investigation. I said, there's nothing to investigate. Anyway, I put him back on waivers the next day, and Berkey took him. So the deal was over. So they investigated, and that's when the no move. So over the summer, the no movement clause became a factor because of that deal. That's what happened. The PA and everybody investigated. There was nothing wrong. I had the right to put him on waivers. Berkey had the right to pick him up, and the league had the right to investigate.
Now it's almost common now. It's the one way that you can get around that list. You think you think it's going to change? You think the players?
Well, if there's a no movement clause,
yes,
you can't put them on
that's
waivers.
Right. That's right.
But if it's a no trade, you can't. So we'll see. I don't think they need any more than that, but we'll see. And I listened to Berkey explain it today on. There's a new show called The Sheet with some guy by the name of Jeff Merrick. And
I think you know who he is.
It popped up on my screen today, and I listened to it. And Berkey's recollection is not the same as the one you guys just got from me. I'll tell you that.
Well, we'll get Berkey on to discuss. We'll give Berkey a chance.
Yeah, we're due to get him.
Yeah, we're due to get him back on.
Well, I guarantee you, he ain't saying what I just said.
Mac,
but it's the truth.
What would Pat Verbeek want with Jacob Trouba at $8 million next year as a AAV and a team that's still not anywhere near ready to compete?
I suspect he wants some, veteran leadership. I hear things aren't rosy there either in the dressing room. So I think that, I think he wants maybe some veteran leadership. They want some credibility with their fan base. Things are. I hear things are raveling out of control out there as well. The coach, he's one of these guys that likes to put the players through like a 3-hour movie in a video session. So like the players like video. If the video room has no lights and they can sleep. Like I remember the players when Hitch used to do his video sessions in Dallas, and they said it was great. If they didn't get their 8 hours sleep, they were able to make it up during the video session, during Hitch's video sessions, because the room was so dark there they could sleep. So I think they're looking for some credibility. Pat's got to make some moves there to try to fix this thing. They've got a group there that's not playing very well. Their young guys are not playing very well, and that's a scary situation.
Okay, just one more on the Rangers, because Kevin Weeks was reporting an 8-year deal for Shesterkin. If I'm not mistaken, Elliot Friedman says it's 11.5.
Got it. Yep.
And Mac, just the timing of this. You just traded your captain away, and then is this the best time to tell everybody that you got your goalie signed, or is it the worst time?
I think it's the best time because he's got a disgruntled group in the room. And I think this gives them a better vibe. This gives them I'm sure they liked Trouba. I happen to like him. But I think that it gives a better vibe to the whole mess that's going on there. And Drury needs some friends right now. He needs some friends,
Call him.
And I'm not one of them, by the way.
Write him a letter. No, you're not.
No, I'm not. Anyway.
So are they going to be using that cap space on someone else this year, do you think?
I would think definitely if there's how much is there, they've got to do whatever they can. The Rangers are supposed to win the Stanley Cup every year, so they've got to do whatever they can do to push it. And by the way, I was disappointed Trouba turns down going to Columbus. I'm thinking, like, aren't we past that yet? Like, seriously, what? How many? I mean, Columbus is in their fourth rebuild since I left there. And, I thought that was over with, that kind of conversation. But anyway, I guess not.
We don't believe for a second that Brady Tkachuk's going anywhere. Last night, a late goal by Norris gives them a regulation win, which was almost like a must win for them. Where do you see them hanging on to this group and letting them dig themselves out of this start and getting themselves back in the mix in the Atlantic? Or what do you do?
It's funny, last night during the game, I sent a note to a former scout of mine that's heavily, watches games every night. So I sent him, I said, don't you think Norris would be the guy to move of that group?
Right.
Norris is the guy to move out. And I know, Garriock has mentioned that, but I like Norris as a player. He's had some really tough injuries, but I said, wouldn't he be the guy that maybe they could afford to move out and get a solid, maybe a little bit more grit into their lineup, maybe another defenseman. They really are desperately, I think they're not good enough on the back end still. So, you know what? And then he scores both goals in a 2-1 win. So I said to the guy, cancel that trade I just made. Forget about that trade.
But
so I look, Brady Tkachuk, I mean, wouldn't you as a franchise dream of having a guy like Brady Tkachuk?
Well, 100% you would, Mac.
And
but
Sanderson too. And I look at Sanderson, what is he, a minus 15? I believe that if it was Jeff Sanderson, but I don't believe that about his father.
But do you think that Larry Brooks makes that name up? Like he just completely fabricates it? Or do you think, would there be a chance that they're worried that Tkachuk won't re-sign when it's time? And I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he should go anywhere. I think they should do everything in their power to keep him. Do you think there's some fear there?
I would think that it's just a comment being made because Ottawa is the same old Ottawa.
Yeah,
despite all the people they've brought in and the new management, and they're still the same Sens, and there's something has got to give here. They've got to get better. Allmark's got to grab a hold of it, but all of them have to get better. There's no denying that. And we've got to get Travis away from being he's worse than the guys in Grumpy Old Men listening to Travis. So we've got to they've got to figure this out. And but this is the problem, guys. To tear a team down, and we've got it going on in different places in the league. To tear a team down and say, "Oh, we're going to rebuild through the draft," and we're going to tell me when it really works. It's like you're in La La Land. Steve Yzerman's one of the best GMs in the game, or was. He's been 7 years now trying to rebuild Detroit. Columbus has been 20 years trying to rebuild. Ottawa, 6-7 years trying to rebuild. Kevin Adams in Buffalo, 6-8 years trying to rebuild. It's not easy. And now we got the same mess going on in Chicago.
That's what I wanted to get to. Kyle Davidson. I brought up the fact that Hagel has turned himself into a really good hockey player and a guy that I think today we can all sit there and go, what would Connor Bedard have been like with a guy like Hagel? Like, where's
what
Kyle?
Did he get?
So tell us about
what did he get for Kane? What did he get for Kane? What did he get for Kirby Doc? I know he got picks. I get that, but You got to win games, especially in a market like Chicago.
So did Luke Richardson lose his job because Kyle Davidson hasn't done his well enough?
Look, I know what it's like to be in the fire, and it's such a tough job, and like I just listed off some real smart hockey people that haven't been able to turn franchises around. It's not easy. It's really tough. But this is your Chicago market. I remember sitting at the Montreal draft, and I'm watching all these guys being dumped, and it was the glee of cap space and the glee of draft picks, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and we're going to start over after just an unbelievable run as a franchise. And I'm thinking, you're going to do this with a guy that is a first-time GM in the league with no limited experience in his front office. I mean, Stan Bowman was there. It was Scotty Bowman as an advisor. Kyle Davidson's there, and who's his advisor? I know he's got Norm Kyper, who's a solid hockey guy as an assistant GM, but I mean, it's pretty thin on experience there, and they're going to turn this around. And then they've got the Bedard factor there. Like I said in this show a month ago about Bedard was struggling, guys. Remember we talked about that a month ago? And I'm watching him now, like he can't win a face-off. And I'm thinking, okay, just a minute. Somebody said, well, he's 19. He could play in the World Junior this year. I said, yeah, I know he's 19. Rick Nash at 19 won the Rocket Richard for me. And I don't remember hearing that he didn't have good players to play with. And that I was going to fire my coach, Dave King, because he wasn't developing Rick Nash. Like, come on. You don't think Luke Richardson tried to work and make Bedard a better player? And yeah, he didn't bring in the A team to play with him, but all these young superstars in the league, lots of them don't have the best play. Sid, I know, came in, and yeah, Malkin, but seriously, Sid made people around him better. How many players did Sid Crosby make their careers? So I'm not being hard on Bedard, but because I think Bedard's going to turn out to be a great player. I really do. But look, teams are playing against him different, and nobody can tell me Luke Richardson didn't try to develop it. And nobody can tell me it was Luke Richardson's fault where the Chicago Blackhawks are today.
I do hear good things about Kyle Davidson. I really do. He's a good person, too, which I really like hearing a lot. But wouldn't it make sense to go get Ken Holland right now and say, hey, Ken, you've been around the game for like a lot of years here. Come in and just help me out.
That's my point. Listen, I don't know Kyle Davidson from Kyle Woodchuck. I don't know him. And I'm probably not going to meet him. Probably not. But you know what? That's my point I'm making. This is a tough job, and he's a first-time GM. So yeah. I mean, there's a few, Ken Holland. Well, I mean, Edmonton couldn't wait to get rid of Ken Holland. I mean, like, seriously, I mean, these guys are so smart. It makes me sick to my stomach when I hear stuff like that. Yeah, Ken Holland, I mean, Hall of Famer, good person, knows the game inside out. I mean, anyway, they don't like to sign these. The GMs don't hire advisors, Nick. The GMs are made to hire them by somebody above them that knows what's going on and has a clue. That's where the advisors come from.
So there's plenty of advisors, and there's plenty of the older, proven guys on Team Canada that you love. Doug Armstrong, got to be right up your alley, I imagine, as guys. He picked for Team Canada for the Four Nations face-off. All the rosters have come out. I'm sure you're thrilled about the event and to talk about it with us here on Sportsnet. What did you think about the roster reveals and how things are shaping up?
I can't say I paid a whole lot of attention to it. I don't know. There's a few surprises, but I think Canada looks like, to me, well, first of all, every team is really good. I looked through Sweden. I mean, Sweden's got a hell of a team. They got a hell of a team. Finland, good team. Everybody's got pretty good goal. I'm a touch nervous about Canada's goaltending. I'm a touch nervous. I love the leadership. I love the Stanley Cup pedigree with Team Canada. How many Stanley Cups on Team Canada? How many Stanley Cups on Team USA?
I don't know the answer. Do you?
Is it like 20-4, or what would it be? It's some. I didn't really count it out, but there looks like a lot of Stanley Cups on Canada, and there doesn't look like a lot on with your country's team.
Sam's on it for us.
Okay.
I just got a text from Kyle Davidson from the Chicago Blackhawks. He's got a question for you, Mac. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Woodchuck.
I know I get it how tough it is, but anyway, it's now I know why I used to get ripped all the time, because I sit back and I look and think, how dumb are some people? And they used to say the same thing about me. So now I get it. Now
give yourself some credit.
Listen,
they still say it.
They're asking. Right now, they're asking that question, right?
Yeah. The problem is, here's the problem with a lot of GMs. When they go to do their rebuild, they think they're GM of a football team. And if you finish last and you get the first pick, it's usually a quarterback, and that gives you a major start on your rebuild, okay? The problem with rebuilding in the NHL is you may pick 5th every year, or you may pick 4th every year. And seriously, it's just, that makes it really tough to rebuild, because you're not getting the franchise player. I was in Columbus 8 years and never had the first overall pick once with the lottery. Not once with the lottery did we come any closer than 3rd. How, and that was like, come on. Columbus have never won the lottery. In 24 years, they've never won the lottery and had the first pick. We had the first pick because I traded for it, but we never had the first pick.
Are you going back into the pool?
No, I did my. I've got a new program where I'm 45 minutes swimming.
Wow.
You know, and I finished my 45 minutes, and as soon as I finish this show, I've got a great bottle of Brunella I brought back from Italy, and I'm going to jump right into that and not worry 1 minute about Kyle and the Blackhawks,
or the Woodchucks,
or Chris Drury with the Rangers, or Kypreos and Bourne. I could care less about all you. The Brunella is a great bottle of wine.
Get yourself a straw, Doug.
From the Tuscany area of Italy.
All right. Thanks for doing this once again in your wetsuit. Jill's going to be upset if you're wearing a wetsuit on her couch.
Guys, look, you don't know how. It was great. I was leaving the pool, and they said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I got to go up and do a show." And they said, "You're on TV." By the way, I went to the dentist the other day. And,
oh God!
And I've got a problem, and they've got to fix a couple of my teeth. They may have to take out my 2 front teeth. Like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God!
I said, well, if they do,
show?
I got to get a hockey picture first, because that's going to be my Twitter picture with no front teeth. And I said, look, I can't have my voice affected. I do a TV show in Toronto every week, and I've got to make sure I speak properly. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really enjoyed it.
At least you know what to ask for Christmas this year. Your 2 front teeth. See you, Matt.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Just some of the most bizarre things that can come out of the man's mouth.
So unofficial count here.
Yeah.
I was going like 1, 2, 1, 2. I think it's 22-4 for Cups
Canada.
on Team Canada versus
USA.
That's
that.
interesting.
But I mean, that's counting the asterisk cups for the Lightnings. But you know, that's they're on there. So
asterisk.
Yeah.
He doesn't count the ones that were
the
in
bubble.
the bubble where they.
Oh my God!
I know.
Break.
Or they actually had to play through a 22-team
Embarrassing.
playoff that year.
I mean, yeah, I thought all the the Dodgers got off the hook that year
too. If the game
too.
was played under the same rules and same everything.
Because the Leafs
because
lost to
people
Columbus.
weren't in the building, it doesn't count for you?
This is God's truth here. I'm glad the Leafs didn't win the cup that year.
I believe you.
That's like
I call BS.
No, I wouldn't
I
want
call BS.
that. Would have forever. Every single non-Leaf fan would be like, that didn't count. That
But
didn't count.
I know
That
how
didn't
desperate you are. You take anything.
Count. No,
Okay.
not that one.
Anything.
Not that one. Anyways, that was 22-4. I think was the count. Anyways, you want to do game time?
All right. We got time for it? You tell me.
Yeah, we'll do game time here. Get my read. It's game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Mentioned yesterday that the Sharks were watchable, and then they lost 8-1.
Oh, it was 5-0 after the first or something.
Yeah. Turns out Lightning still pretty good. So the games tonight, the Leafs are home to the Washington Capitals. And predictably, the Leafs are pretty big favorites on home ice. They're 12-3-0 there now this year. I think it's the best record in the league for any team at home. So they are a minus 150 favorite on home ice against the Washington Capitals. Washington Capitals are the second best team in the league, and they're coming in here as a plus 125 underdog, so maybe a little bit of value on them, but the Leafs have been pretty good at home.
Rasmus Sandin going to score? Or
So
what?
it should be a great game tonight. That is a definite possibility. Big one tonight for the New York Rangers. They just traded their captain, and they just signed their goalie. Going to be a really interesting game to see how they react to those two things. They are very heavy favorites tonight at Madison Square Garden, minus 185. The Penguins are plus 155 on the money line on the other side of that. I have no idea what's going to happen. They could just light them up and they could, be happy, or they could suck and just be sad. I don't know.
A normal outcome for this game, they win kind of 4-2.
Yeah.
It feels like they're not going to win 4-2. It
Yeah.
feels like they're going to win 6-0 or lose 6-0. But
that both of those feel very predictable. And then the last one I'll bring up, a good one in Vegas tonight. Dallas Stars in Las Vegas to take on the Vegas Golden Knights. Stars are minus 120 on the money line, a slight favorite. The Vegas Golden Knights at home are a slight underdog, plus 100. That should be an awesome game.
Vegas at home for plus 100.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
That's a pretty good game, too. So, that was Game Time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
We have yet to put out a request for text.
Oh, yeah, text.
Please text 590-590 if you have any questions for the show. When we come back from break, which Kip will send us to in a moment, we will answer some of your texts.
Text 590. Text us. Thank you.
All right. Great segue
Thank you.
into commercial break. Plus, we'll talk a little bit more about Trouba. I don't think he's going to. My sense is he might not be there that long.
Like this year.
That's what we'll discuss
I look forward to it.
after the break.
All right.
More Real Kipper and Bourne. A reminder that this hour of Real Kipper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. As we close out our last segment, we got news and notes. Text 590-590. I just left it kind of hanging before we went to break on Trouba, and I'm sure Doug MacLean's right on Pat Verbeek going after Trouba in this deal, and it's not like Trouba's like 34 or 35. He's 30.
Yeah.
So probably he sticks around, but is there an option for him to flip Trouba? And maybe it was discussed through this whole thing or not, like come to California, see how you like it. If you're comfortable, then stick around and help me build, or I'll move you. And just one more thought. Yes, the money next year is his AAV's $8 million. I'm not sure where the real money is, though. It might be his $6 million of real cap money based on how bonuses were played out. But if Pat Verbeek was to pick up half of it,
Right.
and bring him down to a $4 million AAV, how many teams would be interested in him at the trade deadline at that number? Because I was told, like, everybody, there's so many teams that kick tires on different scenarios to get to Jacob Trouba. Vancouver, very interested.
Oh, yeah?
Winnipeg,
Yeah, I get
very interested in Trouba, but couldn't find a way to make it work. And also the fact that is Trouba coming to Canada, right? A lot of those guys, Americans, like Chris Kreider and Trouba, they're just not interested in playing in Canada. And that we know he played there before, but maybe not willing to go back.
So that's how you use the salary cap to gain assets. The Anaheim Ducks had the lowest salary payroll this year in the NHL. They acquired Trouba for $8 million, as you mentioned, $6 million real dollars is what he was owed. If you then retain half and trade him, you can. I mean, for what went out, Urho, Vakanainen, and a fourth. How much more are you going to get for a half retained Trouba? You're going to get first.
He still hits like a truck.
Yes.
Last time I checked. How about a first how about maybe even 2 firsts?
You might think about what goes for 2 seconds at the deadline. David Savard.
I'm telling you, there's big time value in there.
And
he's
so
got an asset now.
I think is Kurt Overhart his agent. Am I wrong about that? Whoever it was.
Yeah, you might be right.
So I think he had permission from the team to talk to other teams and sort of pre-negotiate some of these deals. You wonder if they said, listen, we know your wife is in a residency in New York City. Go to Anaheim for this little bit. We'll try to get you back to a contender at the deadline. Or we'll try to do, if it doesn't work, you don't like it, we'll get you back.
Maybe the Devils could take him.
Well, good.
I could see the Florida Panthers taking him.
That's what it is.
Oh, God.
That's what it is.
That is so right.
Isn't it? $4 million, Trouba. All of a sudden, instead of having
That's so right.
Kulikov in your top 4,
Why
you
are
got
you
Trouba.
cringing, Sammy?
Because I'm just picturing somebody with their head down, I don't know who, and him exploding it.
Matthews or Marner?
And exploding him and changing a playoff series with the Leafs and the Panthers.
That's what.
Yeah.
Corey Perry on John
Yeah,
DeMarcus.
something like that. Like you can just picture
No,
it.
you got Tanev now and McCabe. Don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, listen, if Jacob Trouba goes to the Florida Panthers,
Anyways,
that's something I'm not going to
it's
enjoy.
just something to think about
Yes, it is.
with Trouba going to a team that isn't or won't be ready to compete for a long time, and who knows how long they're going to lose Zegras,
Because otherwise,
who's out now indefinitely.
yeah. Otherwise, it makes no sense for me. Like the Ducks aren't trying to win immediately. You would have to re-sign him, obviously, and it's tough sell for a guy in his 30s who's never won a cup to say, do you want to move across the country and commit to 8 years or whatever his next deal is going to be, 6 years or something. So even if it's next year that they decide to flip him, I'm sure he's going to want to be on a Stanley Cup contender at some point. So
All right, we got a few texts here.
all right.
So this is a one just from Calgary. There's a couple Calgary texts here, which we love. First one is your thoughts on the overtime goal in Calgary last night. You guys see it?
Great question. Yes, great question.
Good goal. I thought good goal.
I think it was in the kind of pushing the pad back, but it's clear how much of a loose puck. If it was in tighter, it didn't even have to be underneath his pad, but if it was pressing up against his pad,
There was some separation there.
if there was no separation, yes. If there was no separation, then Calgary had a real strong case.
Yeah.
But because there was so much separation and he got his stick on the puck first, yeah.
It's like one of those trips when you lunge at a guy and you hit the puck first and you follow through and take the skates. They still call tripping there quite a bit. He definitely pushed his pad, pushed it back into the net, but I'm with you that he has fair claim to make a play on that puck. I think it stands. Montgomery was like, we didn't think it was close.
Yeah, well, yeah,
He was on pizza. He was eating pizza.
Yeah, I was in the back eating pizza. I thought it was a goal, and I loved Parayko, Team Canada, hammering it at home.
Yeah.
Love to see that.
And Huska, he didn't really complain about the goal so much as he complained about the lack of explanation from the referees.
So this one's from Derek and Red Deer. The boys on 960 in Calgary were talking about trading or re-signing Rasmus Andersson. My question, if contracts were equal, who would you rather have over the next 8 years, Rasmus Andersson or Mackenzie Weegar?
I love that question.
Anderson.
I also think I would choose Anderson.
I love Weegar, too.
Yes, and I'd like to be clear on that. I love both these guys.
Yeah.
No, I like Rasmus more.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
He's a thumper.
Mm-hmm.
What's Berkey always calls him Fat Raz?
Fat Raz,
He does.
really?
Yes, he used to come to camp a little larger, but
Yeah.
he's a
What a
big
nickname.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
Bufflin, you know.
And he hammers the puck.
Yeah. And I love the stare he gives to the fans
Yes.
when he scores.
He'd be a good D partner
Yeah.
for Morgan.
What
To Mac's point, you can't trade good players. He's got good years left. You want to be good. You need players.
Yeah.
how old is he now?
I think he's
30?
No, I don't think so. Late
Not
20s,
even?
maybe? Rasmus Anderson, got that for me?
Okay, so he's got one more
28.
year.
Yeah.
28.
28.
So
So
one more year.
29, he'll have. He can sign an 8-year deal.
Yeah.
And I think Calgary has to sign him because he could be around in the new building.
Yes.
Kadri can't, but he can.
He's playing 24.50, has 15 points, 24.50 per night. You think Kadri can't, eh?
No, well, he can, but it's 37, 38.
Yeah.
And I believe that Kadri is going to be a good player at 37. I really do. He's his skating is strong enough that I think when he goes into his late 30s, it won't slide. And I think he's smart enough to be a perfect number 3 on a Stanley Cup contending team.
Yeah.
Like the Toronto Maple Leafs. Next text here. And I think I know both of your answers to this question. But evening, gentlemen. Should the NHL have given some more thought to adding a Team Europe and maybe a Young Guns prospect team to the tournament? Such a disappointment to not have great players from Czechia, Russia, Germany, et cetera, represented. And it makes this thing feel a little bit small. Cheers, Steve Zed in Mississauga.
I wrote an article for my weekly Toronto Star on international hockey and where's it going and how quickly can they rebuild it. But I did use Young Guns, Team Europe, and lack of credibility in one sentence.
About that, it gave that other event a lack of credibility, the World Cup.
Yes.
The under 23 thing, like, made me more mad than anything. It's so arbitrary. It's like, we have a blonde team. Who are the best blonde players? And we'll take them off your country. It's like, what do you mean you're going to take our best under 23? They took Connor McDavid. You know, and it's like, we can't figure out who has the better players when you just randomly take people off the teams. It made me so mad.
Entertaining, though. Like, you know.
One of the best hockey games of all time was
Yes.
Sweden versus Team North America.
Great players were on the ice. It was fun
Yeah.
to watch. No one is saying it wasn't fun to watch.
Okay, it was fun to watch. But
But the same
one
way
of
a scrimmage is
It
fun
was
to watch if everyone's
unbelievable
trying.
hockey game. It was an unbelievable hockey game.
It was a great exhibition game.
It was a
unbelievable,
unbelievable hockey game.
But there was no
One of the best
stakes,
I've
There's
ever
right?
watched.
nothing.
There was stakes.
Nobody remembers
Of course
it.
there was
Nobody
stakes.
talks about that game.
You're
or
looking
remembers
at
it.
me. I do.
You're weird. Okay.
But you're talking about it the way you talk about like the Leafs coming back from 5-0 in Columbus to lose 6-5. Like it was a game
Nobody-
you remember. Doesn't mean it
Nobody's at
mattered.
a bar right now talking about that game.
I mean, no, they were for a year after it happened.
Because we're desperate for any form of best on best.
I do remember a save that King Henry made on McKinnon, though. I remember.
Yeah.
Well, but it was like the overtime
Yeah.
was back and forth. There was breakaway,
great
breakaway, and then
Great
McKinnon.
hockey.
Okay, you're
McKinnon-
not helping my point.
McKinnon-
Nobody talks about that game.
And then McKinnon walked in on Henrik and toe drag, top corner, backhand, beautiful goal. That was an amazing hockey game. Amazing.
Okay.
All
right.
Do you think Team Canada puts Crosby, McKinnon, and Marchand on the same line? Nova Scotia would lose its collective mind from Greg
I think
in
it's
Nova
very
Scotia.
possible. You know, we never talked about it. I did lines. I laid out my lines, but I think that line's possible.
Which one? What's your number one line?
My number one
Oh,
line.
yeah.
Oh God, let's see if I can get there fast enough. Who did I have?
Sam Reinhart
Yeah.
or Reinhart?
I did, but you're gonna like my line, Skip. All right, I found it. Here we go. My top line was Reinhart, McDavid, and Braden Point.
That's very good. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
to
liking
me, with McDavid, is two guys who can think the game with a high IQ
Fly
and are
around.
good enough to put away his
I'm
chances.
sorry, Point, McDavid, and
Sam Reinhart. Second line,
Good hockey line.
McKinnon, Marner, and Hagel.
Oh, my
How
God.
fast, how smart. I figure McKinnon's punching holes in the defense.
Yeah.
Marner's kind of the off-speed pitch, finding ways in through and getting those guys pucks.
Yep.
Stone, Crosby, Marchand.
Oh, man.
How smart is that line?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
an IQ line. That's,
Love that.
and any sort of pressure. And then your fourth line is Bennett, Cirelli, Konechny.
That one would be fun to play against.
Crash, yeah, right. Just being on the ice against that group.
I don't like two right-handed shots with McDavid.
You know, like two right-handed shots
want
at McDavid.
I want a left. I want
Okay.
a left with him. But
No, okay. That's
I'm okay. Hagel to me comes to mind.
Hagel for Reinhart there. Give Reinhart to Marner, McKinnon.
No, I bring Point. I put Hagel up and I take Point out. I like Reinhart with McDavid. I like Marner with McDavid too, but McKinnon, McDavid, who cares?
That's pretty funny.
I actually said my plan
It
when
doesn't
building
matter.
this
It
team
doesn't
was
matter.
like,
It doesn't
how do you
matter.
build around those guys to make them the best they can be? Because you're right. Whoever you put there, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
No one's worried
No.
like, oh, they can't keep up. These are elite guys. So.
What else do we have here? Old topic, but why does it seem like the officiating is getting worse, or is it just me?
Totally not true.
I can pick any game and have to switch it off because there's no consistency in any of the games. Yes, I know they do their best, but a hook is a hook. My worst cross-check. Get it right, boys. Jeff from Peterborough.
Jeff from Peterborough, I've been around a long time. This has just been going on from decades
Tough
and
sport.
generation, and it's just the way it is, and that's just part of our sport. Is that someone's going to go, what a brutal call?
Yes.
It's
Are you
just
look-
part of the fabric.
Are you looking at me?
I do think
There's
I
no
think
way
we
of getting
have
around it.
more officials, NHL officials now who used to be players. Like I don't feel like when I grew up, all those guys were former pros. But like a lot of these guys have played a very high level of hockey.
You know, I forget when. Oh yeah, was that when they had that Winter Classic in Buffalo? No, sorry, against Buffalo, and it was in Hamilton at Tim Hortons Field or whatever. It was the Leafs were awful. It's when Matthews got suspended. But I was sitting on the glass, like I was right beside the rink, and
Trying to see through the bodies and make calls.
it's so fast.
Yeah.
It's so fast and it's so physical and it's so like everything happens all over the place. It's impossible job.
Tough sport.
And I hammer them as much as anybody, but it's never going to be any better than it is right now.
My terrible Jeff Merrick idea is that I would like to see like a lifeguard chair beside
lifeguard- like a
beside
eye in the
ice,
sky.
and I like it just a slightly over the action
I
official.
like that. An eye in the
can-
sky.
Really?
You can see, you can see. Although I'm sure it'd make for some viewing issues for some seats. Which
Or you just put him up in the press box with Bonesy and he'd yell at him. The last one that I was going to read, I just want to read this one here. The last one. My favorite three. Your senior lady, Judy, now living in the Kawarthas. When I moved from Kitchener, I was sure to bring your show with me. I don't miss your show. Don't have female friends that think alike, though. Haha. You guys make my day. Don't ever get rid of Doug MacLean. He is such a comedy act each week. Gotta love the guy. We all need the laughter. I tape it if I am unable to watch it at that time. From Judy.
I got to say, we've had very few in-person meetings with our fans, but there's no shortage of people who of that ilk that came to say hi to Kip. I'll tell you that. There's some listeners out there who came to see old Kipper.
They've
here.
got nothing better to do. That's what it
we
is.
appreciate the support, though. That is nice.
Apparently, this guy says, Kipper Bourne, the only team Wayne Gretzky played for and never scored a goal. Peterborough Petes. He played 3 games and recorded 3 assists, traded to the Sioux. So there you go. The only team he
How
ever.
did he-
Yeah, that's what. Hey, according to Henny, cheers from Henny.
Did you need to know that today?
Listen, Sam's full of information
Full of something.
every day. I would have never guessed that he went 0 for 3.
Yeah.
Full of something.
All right.
All
well,
right, good day to finish off.
Quality. Lots of news today.
Our thanks to Kris Versteeg joining us in our Leaf Hour. And then, of course, on a Friday, Doug MacLean.
Best of them.
Just going to Wayne Gretzky's Hockey DB. He played 3 games for the Peterborough Petes, and he did not score a goal. So there you go. Henny was right.
And Greg Gilbert won a cup with the Rangers and the Islanders. The only player to ever win the cup with both teams.
Do you know
Here
it's
to help.
St. Nicholas Day today?
What?
St. Nicholas Day.
Oh.
It's my name day today.
Oh,
nice.
Well,
Yeah.
happy name day.
Yes.
What is happening?
That's,
Christmas? Is
no,
it
that's
Santa?
my big fat Greek wedding.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Nick.
It's all the
'Cause it's
doctor,
St. Nick's
but
Day.
Nick's.
Sammy.
Buddy, I don't know what you're talking about. We got to go.
Enjoy the weekend, everybody.